Have you ever wondered what would happen if time wasn't a one-way street? What if, for just a fleeting moment, you could unring a bell, unspill a cup, or even unsay a word? In the bustling ancient heart of southern China, a peculiar tale whispers through the tea houses and quiet alleyways, a story of an antique so potent, so unsettling, it blurs the line between myth and chilling reality. This is the story of the reverse clock of Guangzhou and the man who, perhaps unwisely, wound its gears. Our story begins with Mr. Wei, a man whose life revolved around the dusty treasures of the past. For over 30 years, his pawn shop, the Dragon's Hoard, had been a fixture in an old district of Guangzhou. Wei wasn't just a pawnbroker, he was a connoisseur, a quiet scholar of forgotten eras. He had seen exquisite jade, ancient porcelain, and even a rumored relic from the Ming dynasty. Yet nothing prepared him for the day a frail, elderly woman, her face a roadmap of worries, brought in a peculiar grandfather clock. It was unlike anything Wei had ever encountered. Crafted from dark, polished wood, it stood nearly 6 feet tall, adorned with intricate carvings of celestial dragons and auspicious clouds. Its most striking feature, however, was its face, a dark, almost obsidian disc with Roman numerals etched in what looked like silver, yet somehow wrong. The numbers seemed to shift, subtly, in the periphery of vision.
Wei, intrigued by its sheer artistry and the faint, almost imperceptible hum it emitted, offered a generous sum, sensing a rare find. The woman, accepting the money with a weary sigh, simply said, "Be careful how you wind it, Mr. Wei. It has a habit of changing things." A cryptic warning, easily dismissed as an old woman's superstition. But the moment Wei carried the clock into his back room, a peculiar sensation washed over him. The air seemed to thicken, and the subtle scent of aged wood mixed with something else, something metallic and cold. He set it down, admiring its craftsmanship under the dim light of his shop. He noticed there was no pendulum, only a complex system of gears visible through a small glass panel. And the winding key, it felt unusually heavy, almost warm to the touch.
Wei, ever the meticulous restorer, decided to clean and wind the clock. He inserted the heavy key and turned it clockwise, just as he would any other timepiece. A soft click echoed in the quiet room, followed by a faint whirring sound. Nothing happened immediately. Wei stepped back, adjusting his spectacles. Just then, his elbow accidentally nudged a small antique vase displayed precariously on a nearby shelf. The vase teetered, then crashed to the tiled floor, shattering into a dozen pieces. Wei cursed under his breath, sighing at the misfortune. He bent down, about to gather the fragments. But then it happened. A strange, shimmering haze seemed to ripple through the air, almost like heat rising from asphalt on a summer day. The sound of the vase breaking seemed to play backward in his mind, a fleeting, almost inaudible shatter-unshatter. And before his very eyes, the fragments on the floor rose. They flew together with an impossibly swift grace, reforming into the perfect, unbroken vase, which then floated back onto the shelf. Wei stared, his mouth agape, heart thudding against his ribs. He blinked. The vase sat there, pristine. Was it a trick of the light? A momentary hallucination? Or was it real?
Over the next few weeks, Wei found himself drawn to the clock, winding it every 3 days, always with a creeping sense of anticipation. He documented each incident in a small, leather-bound journal, trying to find a pattern. The reversals were small, localized, and fleeting, usually lasting no more than a few seconds. One afternoon, his young apprentice, Lin, a boisterous boy of 15, accidentally knocked over a tray of tea, spilling it across an important document. Lin yelped, panicking, "Oh, Mr. Wei, I'm so sorry." Wei, about to scold him, felt the familiar temporal shimmer. The spilled tea on the document swirled, then gathered itself, retracting back into the cup, leaving the paper perfectly dry. Lin, utterly bewildered, looked from the dry document to the full cup, then to Wei, his eyes wide. Wei, maintaining his composure, simply cleared his throat. "Careful, Lin. Some things, once done, can't be undone. Others, well, they just might." He watched Lin walk away, visibly shaken, and a shiver ran down his own spine. The clock wasn't just reversing objects, it was unwinding actions.
The clock's influence seemed to grow with each winding. The reversals became slightly more pronounced, the sensations more intense. Wei started noticing changes in himself. He'd catch glimpses of moments that hadn't happened yet, or rather, had happened but were then reversed. It was subtle, like a momentary glitch in his perception. One evening, alone in his shop, a customer came in, haggling aggressively over the price of a small jade figurine. The man was rude, raising his voice. Wei, feeling a surge of irritation, was about to snap back. But then, the clock in the back room chimed, a low, resonant dong. The air shimmered. The customer's angry words seemed to rewind, his voice dropping, his expression softening slightly. He repeated his last sentence, but this time it was calmer, less confrontational. Wei, catching himself, responded with a surprising politeness. The interaction smoothed over. The customer left, seemingly oblivious. Wei, however, felt a profound unease. Had the clock not just reversed an action, but a feeling? A thought? If so, what were the limits? What if the clock decided to reverse something truly significant? The idea was both fascinating and terrifying. He began to feel a deep, chilling suspicion that the clock wasn't merely a mechanism, it was a hungry entity, subtly rewriting small fragments of reality, one wind at a time.
Wei continued his observations, a mix of scientific curiosity and growing dread. He noted that the reversals never seemed to affect him directly in a physical way, only the immediate environment or the actions within it. But the psychological toll was immense. He started second-guessing every decision, every word, every movement, wondering if the clock had already fixed it, corrected it, or simply undone it. One fateful night, as a typhoon raged outside, shaking the old shop, Wei decided it was time for a final, crucial test. He stood before the clock, the heavy winding key in his hand. He planned to leave a small, personally significant object, a faded photograph of his parents, on a table near the clock, then intentionally knock it off. Would it reverse? Would his parents' smiling faces reappear from the shattered frame? As he reached for the key, a sudden, powerful gust of wind rattled the shop's ancient door. A loud thud came from the front. Wei hesitated, his hand hovering over the keyhole. Was it the wind or something else? He walked cautiously to the front of the shop. Nothing was amiss. He returned to the clock, his heart pounding. The photograph was still on the table. He picked up the key again, but then, for the first time, he noticed something. The minute hand on the clock, instead of ticking, seemed to vibrate subtly, oscillating back and forth by a hair's breadth. It wasn't moving forward, it was constantly, minutely reversing and advancing, in a perpetual silent struggle against its own mechanism. He looked at the winding key, suddenly feeling its immense weight. What if he wasn't just winding it forward, but was also, in some unimaginable way, winding it backwards? What if the clock didn't just reverse small events, but the very act of his choosing to wind it?
Wei never performed his final experiment. He simply stared at the oscillating hand, a cold dread seeping into his bones. He knew, with an unsettling certainty, that the clock was far more than a simple antique. It was a paradox, a temporal anomaly confined within carved wood and gleaming brass, constantly struggling against the natural flow of existence. He sealed the clock away in a reinforced crate, hidden deep within his shop's secure vault, never to be touched again. To this day, the dragon's hoard still stands. Mr. Wei still presides over his treasures, and the tales of his uncanny finds persist. But if you listen closely on a quiet night in Guangzhou, some say you can still hear a faint, almost imperceptible hum emanating from the depths of the old pawn shop. A soft, ethereal whirring that sounds suspiciously like time itself, trying desperately to rewind. What exactly is sealed in that vault? An antique? Or something that subtly, silently unmakes reality itself, one tick, or rather, one untick at a time? Perhaps it's best we never find out.